Welcome back to EvoReal Talks. I'm Jessica Side with my co-host
Matt Side.
Or Matthew when he's in trouble.
Matthew Joel
That's
if I'm
true.
in trouble with my mother.
Well, sometimes I call you that.
You know, I met a guy.
Tell me about
I met a guy last
Mm-hmm.
Friday, up at Schweitzer in the pro shop. I was paying for my skis to get waxed, and he...
Wow, you sound like such a yuppie right now, which is probably not a word that's even being used.
A yuppie.
Like we do that all the time.
What's a yuppie?
Seriously.
Okay,
Wow.
Come on, I'm telling a story.
Okay,
So the guy
ahead.
on the other side of the counter, he's looking at my debit card. He's like, "What's your middle name?" I'm like, "Well, my middle name's Joel." He's like, "Oh, because I'm Matthew Jordan." And I was like, "Does your mom yell Matthew Jordan when you're in trouble too?" We were kind of having a moment, and then there was...
You do know that everyone's moms yells at them with their full name and their middle name as well.
Well,
but
it was different because we were both Matthew J's, right? And so, anyway.
When you're not really in trouble, I say Matthew J.
You're the only one that does that.
Yeah. Maybe
that's like fake trouble.
Yeah, that's
like
fake
I'm
trouble.
doing something that you don't love, but I'm not really in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That happens.
I have no idea why we got off on this tangent, Matt. Let's talk a little bit
Let's
about
talk real estate.
Yeah, let's do that.
You know, I feel like spring is in the air, Jessica. At least real estate spring is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say both.
But spring's a ways off, and I think that is what I wanted to say, is that there comes this time in February, into February, sometimes into March, and I call it real estate spring. I didn't coin the phrase. My good friend Jane Gertz, shout out to Jane. She's the one that brought it to my attention, and it's this idea that all of a sudden, and this actually happened earlier, in like middle of February around Valentine's Day this year. Mm-hmm. The sun peeked out. There was still snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, it was still cold. Like, it came out, and then 2 days later we had a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. And that is what I call real estate spring. There's, like, this moment in time where people are like, oh, it's springtime. And so people that have thought, I'm going to wait for this or I'm going to wait for that in buying or selling houses, they're kind of like, the time is here. We should go look at houses this weekend, hon.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, if we're gonna
get our house
if we're gonna
ready.
sell, we really should start getting on the horse, and that's true. And so I want to talk about a couple of things in that regard. I'm not going to talk about getting your house ready for sale. That's going to be a different episode. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
If you were not a real estate broker,
okay.
You're just a normal gal out there.
Okay, a normal gal.
You're a
what does that
normal
feel
gal.
like? I don't know. Okay.
And you decide, I think I want to buy a house. I think it's time for us to look for a house to buy. Mm-hmm. What is the first thing that you're going to do?
I'm going to go online.
You're going to go on the internet?
I'm going to go on the internet. I'm going to...
hit AOL.com and check them out?
Yeah. Dial up, for sure. No, I'm probably going to go to Zillow. I'm probably going to go to the internet. I'm going to look up maybe the area. I might guess on the price. I would probably be a little stressed out by not knowing what I could afford, so then I would probably try and figure out what I could afford.
Sure.
Is that the answer you were hoping for?
I was curious.
Okay.
It's the answer that I think most people give.
Okay.
Okay, so now you're on the internet. You can jump around and say, oh, I think we can afford this based on payment calculators. Like, okay, so you're on the internet. You've decided kind of what you're looking for. What matters to you on the internet?
Pictures.
Yeah.
I want to see the house. I want to see the outside. I want to see the inside. I want to try and even figure out what the layout is, because for me, layout is extremely important. I think anybody who's in their second, third, fourth home has lived in. Yeah,
the layouts
you know what
that don't work.
Yeah, what you like, what you don't like. When we first bought our first home that we bought, we just needed a house, right? I mean, we were looking at just about anything as long as it was in the area that we wanted,
Right.
So, but we didn't care as much about the layout, but certainly now I do. So that's the most important thing to me, is being able to see the house.
Yeah, and you're not alone. A high percentage of people, like, that's what draws them to a property.
Yes.
And I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. What I'm trying to communicate.
I believe in you, Matthew J.
What I'm trying to communicate in this, and what I am going to do is I am going to give our listeners a little bit of a snapshot into our marketing strategy. Like, obviously not the whole marketing strategy. It's like, I don't know, 11 pages of bullet points of all the things that we do to market a property, but I want to pick out some of the highlights of the
who
things.
Is our? I just thought we should actually talk about that.
Our, like, Team EvoReal's marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Shout out to EvoReal.
Oh my Lord. Matt and his shout outs. I don't know. Someone should go back through all of our episodes and see how many times you say, anytime you say a person's name, you
I
go,
love to shout out to my people. Matthew Jordan at Schweitzer. If you catching me here, the Matthew J's unite. All right, come on.
This is the moment where I get embarrassed. No.
Get back on track, Jessica.
So, EvoReal is the team that he's talking about. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. And I will say almost the number one thing that we do, and not every real estate broker does this, not for sure, most for sale by owners don't do this.
Wait.
What?
I want to say something.
Okay.
I want to say something because I want to say that I have been in this business. I've had my real estate license, I believe I got it in 2003. So, and I got my designated broker's license in 2006, I think, or 2005.
Yeah, it was
2005.
2 years.
Anyway, around those numbers. And
it's a long time ago.
For a long time, I was so afraid of listings because there's such a huge responsibility in selling someone else's home. With a buyer, like, I'm not responsible for what houses come on the market. I'm only responsible to react to the market, to look at the houses, make the offer. But when it comes to listing, the fear is a call in the middle of the day from a seller that says, "What are you doing to market my home? We're not getting enough showings. We're not whatever," because it wasn't this market that we're in right at this moment. And
yet I will say, as a segue, like, I don't care what market you're in, like, what you're doing to market the property is important, and I think we'll circle back around to that. But
so what I was going to say is that I was very intimidated by listings for a very long time, and I finally got to the place where I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out, and I need to have a plan that is comprehensive, that is customer oriented, that gives them the absolute best possible exposure ever. And that's where our marketing plan came from. I was tired of being intimidated by being a listing agent. I was tired of the fear of that phone call from someone asking me, "What am I doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I put a sign in your yard, and it's on the internet somewhere." Like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was a fear of and feeling like that was all you were doing.
Yes.
And the reality is
that is all I was doing.
That is all that you were doing, as a lot of brand new agents, unless they've got a system that they've inherited or they've got a background in marketing that they can create it. Like, that's a great question to ask when you're interviewing a real estate professional. Well, what are you going to do to market my home?
Yeah, and I took pictures with my iPhone.
Those are so great pictures.
They're getting better, but there's a better way to do it.
It doesn't matter how good the camera is, it's also the back end editing that makes the difference, right?
Yes.
Like, even to I'm reading this from our marketing, professional grade photos in parentheses with address and description in the file name, right? Like, those things, the internet bots are out there, they're pulling everything, and anything that can drive more traffic to that online marketing of a property.
Sure, when I'm looking at an area, if I Google, South Perry District.
If your house is in South Perry District, it better pop up. Yeah. And the more you have that kind of search engine optimization going on, the better it is. So that is the number one thing. Professional grade photography. Like, if you have crap pictures, people are going to swipe left.
Yes.
Or right, whatever one it is.
I think it's left.
I think it is too. Well, that's how
We've never been on dating apps because we were married.
I'm pretty sure that everything goes that direction. Anyway, or no pictures at all, even worse.
Yes.
Like, if you're on Zillow or you're on whatever,
or they only have like 3 or 4 pictures. It's horrible.
You should have 20, 30, and now they let us go up to over 40, I think, on the MLS now. I mean, it's just tons and tons of pictures, and you want those high quality pictures. So it's the visual aspect of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you're a consumer on your phone or you're on the computer, and I would say most people are starting on their phone. Mm-hmm. Even my mom would start on her phone probably. Maybe. Is the visual engagement. So pictures, the other things that you can do, property video tours, those are really engaging when you're talking about layout.
Sure.
Like, hey, let me take you on a tour of this home.
Yeah.
And we're going to walk through the house. It might be a 2 or 3 minute video.
Yeah, and then the cool thing about that, because we do those for our listings, and we're talking about this, we are tooting our own horn just a little bit here.
Absolutely.
And I think it's because I think it's important to know what your agent is doing to market your home. So doing a video...
with 2,800 real estate agents in Spokane, not all agents are created equal.
So when I'm doing something like that, I'm not just going, here this is, when... you're gonna talk about it in a second, that we do
whatever, go for it.
A 3D tour. We have this very expensive camera with 11
it's got 9 cameras on the camera,
and it takes all these, and then there are these really smooth. There's a lot of virtual tours out there that are not smooth, that are not super great.
They're not real 3D tours.
So this one is wonderful, pictures. But even in that, I still can't open a drawer. So like when I'm doing my tours, I know I had a house that the kitchen was so cool that I was able to open some drawers and show people, like, here are some things that you wouldn't be able to ascertain from the pictures or even the description, because you only have so many characters you can put in there. So the live walking through a house is a great tool.
Yeah, absolutely. So drone video too. So again, even when you don't have property, sometimes like just having that kind of presence of the neighborhood and the areas. 3D tours. So I'll just call it visual engagement, whether that's a combination of video pictures.
So we got professional pictures, 3D tours, drone footage, and like that social media wonderfulness of like walking through your house and talking about it.
Yeah. I think the other thing that, but probably in my top 5 items that we put together are the marketing narrative and lifestyle story. And that comes from really kind of the curious engagement of the person that lives in the home. Because you and I, we can look up square footage and bedrooms and bathrooms and type of roof and type of siding and type of windows, and great, those might be important, and those are important on certain levels. But at the end of the day, when you're buying a home, you're not just buying a house, you're buying a home. You're buying the lifestyle that home and that neighborhood and all of those things bring into it. And part of our job is to distill out of the conversation what is that lifestyle story? Like, what is it like to live in the Perry District? We'll just use that as an example.
For sure.
Because there is a lifestyle with the Perry District. And it's different than Indian Trail. And some people are going to love one over the other. And if I can do a great job for my sellers in promoting that lifestyle, I'm going to capture buyers that might not have even known that was a place they wanted to be. So as far as like kind of the top 2 areas to focus, those I think are really important. I want to ask you another question. This is obviously an unscripted question.
I love being quizzed and asked questions. So go for it.
So in a strong seller's market like this, like, why should somebody even hire a real estate agent? Why not just sell it on their own?
Oh man. Well, let's talk about this, because first of all, not every house sells. I do think that's important to understand. Like, one of the things that we do, and I have no idea where he wants me to go with this. I'm just going to go whatever way I want.
You do anyway.
One of the things that I do when I walk through a house is that we walk through and we talk about the things that are potentially going to stop someone from buying that house. So we're going to look at every, I get people who call me actually and say, I want to sell in 2 years. I had this call the other day. 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years from now, but we want to do things today that will give us that money back in 5 years. And so he just had a laundry list, boom, 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 boom. These are the things. And I said, do this, don't do that, don't spend too much on this, be careful with that, do this. And that's what you got to do. So for number one, having someone who's an expert that knows what buyers want when they walk through a property is really important. And to know where to put your money, rather than don't waste your money on certain things. So I think that's one. Once we move into it, the marketing is still important, but how about multiple offers? How about when you get 14 offers and trying to figure out which one is the best offer and negotiating for you the best possible thing? Because maybe the offers that came in are good, but we can make them better by negotiating something that is sweet for you as the seller.
Pause right there. I want to just camp on this for a minute or so. Is just that exactly. Because first of all, are you as a for sale by owner going to get 8 to 10 offers? Like, you're going to get an offer that you're going to get somebody that's interested, or maybe a couple people that are interested, and then you'll have to coordinate getting them through, and then you're having a conversation, and then they're like, yeah, I think we'll put in an offer, and now you're engaging this individual, and the next person that calls, you're like, well, we could take you through, but we do have somebody that's interested right now, and so why don't we see where that goes before we... Now all of a sudden you're negotiating based on your asking price to try and get them to give you your asking price. Whereas if you've got 8 offers coming in because we've gone full tilt, 100% out of the gate marketing, even in a market where there's little inventory, because the point isn't like, we're not just trying to get an offer. Like, we want to get as many offers as we can. So now all of a sudden we've got a spreadsheet of what's the strongest offer, and it may or may not be just on. Right. Now we've got, okay, this one's got the best price, but this term isn't as good. So can I go back to this other buyer and say, hey, if you can up this term, we'll put you in first position. Now all of a sudden we have the best price and the best terms.
And there are I'm calling them insurance policies, where what if the appraisal comes in low? How can we ahead of time put an insurance policy in place so that you don't lose potentially $20,000 because the appraisal comes in low because people are coming with these high offers?
Right.
Like, there's so many things that you can do in that negotiation stage. And I remind my brokers of this all the time. I say, your job is to get the very best deal for your clients. Figure out what that is and help them down that path and give them the right advice and let them decide. But my job is to get you all those offers. If I can only get you 2 offers, then my job is to get you 2 offers, because that's what the market is doing right now. If my job is to get you 14 offers because that's what the market is doing right now, that is what I'm going to do. And that is what marketing will do for you.
Absolutely.
Is get you all those possibilities so you have choices, which is great.
Absolutely. So
So I answered right?
Well, there wasn't a right answer.
I feel like it was kind of the right answer.
Well, I mean, it was a good answer for
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
I didn't have any idea, actually.
Did you want to rate my answer? No,
I would give you an 8.5.
Oh, so room for improvement.
Well, hardly anybody's 10 on anything. The point being that is, of course it's going to cost you money to pay a real estate broker to list your house. But if you're getting an asking price only offer with one offer as a for sale by owner, like, why would they pay more?
Yeah.
But if I can get you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and these aren't fake numbers, over list price with an additional $25,000 down, and sometimes people even waiving their inspections, like, that's probably a lot more than the real estate commission that you were about to pay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jessica's got some interesting stuff for us.
I hope so.
You always do.
It's always the hope. So, for many years, my kids' elementary school has been going to a museum. And I remember the first time that it's like a field trip, right? So, the first time I went to this, I was literally is the wrong word, figuratively floored by this little slice of history that I had no idea.
Your mom is listening.
So first of all, we drive to Sagal, Idaho, which is far from here.
You'll probably have to Google it unless you live
which is
here a long time.
Yeah, like south of Sandpoint. Sagal, Idaho. We take a right, and then we just drive, and we keep driving, and we keep driving, and I'm like, are these the right directions? We're going to a museum, and the name of this museum, it's a longer name than this, but they told me it was the Byrd Museum. So I'm like, I don't understand why we're like going to a bird museum. We're not even studying that topic right now. So we drive and it's snowy, and it's these back roads, and it's very tight, and then we come upon this incredible, no other way of saying it, like compound. Like, when I think of a compound, I think of, it's gated, it's got different buildings, and we go to this museum, and this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about this museum. Let's see. Let me find. I've got the name. The official name of the museum is. I'll find it in a minute. But we'll just call it the Byrd Museum for right now. And the Byrd Museum is a museum put together by Dr. Forrest Byrd. There's where the name comes in.
Now I get it.
And his wife, Dr. Pamela Byrd.
They were both doctors?
They were both doctors, and absolutely. So, I want to talk a little bit. So first of all, let me tell you, when you walk into the museum, you are, first of all, there was this huge warehouse, and you look up and they're just airplanes hanging from the ceiling, and they're all on pulleys. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you can imagine, I'm thinking I'm going to a bird museum, and I walk in, and there's all this World War II paraphernalia and medical paraphernalia, and there's little helicopters in there, and there's planes, and I was just like, what is this place? And then, of course, the tour guide. So I have now been to the Bird Museum, I think 4 times. One of those times was on Father's Day, because I was like, this place is so cool. I'm bringing back my father-in-law, Ron, and my stepdad, Paul, and we're going to go there on Father's Day, and they were open. It was super fun. So let's talk a little bit about the gentleman who this museum is mostly based on, and that is Dr. Forrest Byrd. He was born in 1921 in Massachusetts. He graduated from high school when he was 14 years old. He met Orville Wright and Henry Ford. His dad was a pilot in World War I. Mr. Ford used to come to his father's clam bakes on Memorial Day and Labor Day and was impressed by it. This 12-year-old boy who was building homemade tractors out of Model T car parts.
Wow.
His first solo flight was at 14 years old. He was a certified pilot by the time he was 16.
Holy smokes.
He was recalling, actually this is an interview with Morley Safer on 60 Minutes, which I'm sure Matt and I both used to watch when we were kids with our parents. He was, in 1937, he was flying his plane. He got up alongside this massive airship. And what he tells the story on 60 Minutes is that he saw a swastika on the end of that ship. And it was the German Zeppelin, the Hindenburg. It was headed toward Lakehurst, New Jersey, where hours later, it burst into flame. Now, I don't know if that's a tall tale, but either way, that's what he said. Pretty impressive. He went on active duty in 1941 in World War II. Okay. Now, this is where the story really finds its kind of like intrigue. In World War II, he was assigned to training and transport commands. So because he had so much knowledge about just flight in general and planes and things like that, he did a lot of training. But he also studied aeronautics, and he was ferrying bombers. Okay, so he's ferrying bombers around, fighters and transport stuff. Now, he was really interested in high altitude respiration problems, right? Because American pilots could only go 28,000 feet into the air, but German pilots could go 40,000 feet into the air, which gave them a huge advantage, right? So now this is my favorite part of the story, and I will tell you this, if you're listening to this, and I don't know if I have the full story, but this is the story of the first tour guide that ever took us through the Bird Museum told us, is that he was like so fascinated by this respirator system, because when they would get a German bomber, okay, he was transporting. So he transported this aircraft.
So what do you mean when they would get it? Like one would crash and then they would go like intercept it in some way?
Yes.
Or they took over an airfield and then they had some bombers that they would take back or something like that.
Somehow they had acquired it from something. Battle that they had won or something. Okay. And then he was flying it. So
he was actually flying the German bomber back to whatever U.S. base.
Sure, so or European base or Pacific or whatever it was. He was kind of flying all over the place.
Sorry, I was picturing it on the back of a truck.
Sure. And he's flying this thing, and he's fascinated by it. So you know what he did? He stole the respirator from inside of the German... Now, the last person I heard said he took it or he borrowed it. But the first guy said he basically stole it out of there, and because he wanted to study it. He actually helped to modify the American regulators to be more like the German ones, and it was adopted by the Army during World War II, so they could now get up to 37,000 feet rather than the 28,000 feet that they had been doing before.
So the Germans still had a 3,000 foot advantage.
According to this, yes. So that was fascinating. Okay, he was fascinated by that respiratory thing. So after the war, he went to medical school. He was studying aviators' high altitude breathing problems. That was the thing that but he started realizing that the German respirators could lead to something. So he started tinkering with breathing machines for patients and hospitals. Okay, so he had his first prototype in 1953, cobbled together from shortcake tins and a doorknob, and it was very unsuccessful. Okay, so for our young inventors out there, in 1953, this guy had a flop on his hands. But he continued to develop his ideas. In the 1950s and 1960s, he pioneered some of the first portable and reliable mechanical ventilators for people with acute and chronic heart and lung afflictions. So these were small devices, and they were used. These were the machines that replaced the iron lung. And if you know what an iron lung is, it's the size of a small.
It's
yeah,
huge.
It's the size of a small submarine, and people were inside of it like their whole life because of polio. So this was ravaging the country and the world at the time. And so he used that stolen German device to understand respiratory, and then he used that knowledge and he continued to get his education. It's just absolutely incredible. So he had the first low-cost, mass-produced pediatric respirator later called the Baby Bird, which significantly reduced mortality rates in infants with respiration problems. Unbelievable. His company still exists to this day. It's called Percussion Air. It's headquartered in Sandpoint, Idaho.
Interesting.
They still sell to hospitals and.
Is he from? Do you know if he was from this area or he just moved here?
He moved here. He was born in Massachusetts, so he moved here. I don't have the details of that.
Interesting.
I may have read it, but I didn't put it into my notes. Just some interest. So that's why you've got medical equipment at this place. You've got planes at this place. He was at the time the oldest living helicopter flight instructor. In 1995, he was included in the U.S. Inventors Hall of Fame. He and his wife, Dr. Pamela Byrd, opened here it is, I knew I would find it in my notes, Byrd Aviation Museum and Invention Center in 2007 in Sagal, Idaho, on their 300-acre ranch. 300 acres. His wife...
Wait, every one of those airplanes were operable, right? Like if I remember when
hold on, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Stealing your thunder.
Yes.
I got to go to the museum on Father's
So
Day
his
too.
wife was incredibly remarkable. She was the founder and CEO of Innovative Product Technologies. They helped people who wanted to invent, get their products out there, ideas and technologies. She was, because her husband was so into aviation, of course, that kind of led her into it. She realized that WASP, which was the Women Air Force service pilots, did not have like any kind of wonderful like tribute to them. So it's there at the ranch. They've got a tribute to the WASPs. I don't think you actually call them the WASP, but the WASP. And that's a completely fascinating. I kind of went into a little bit of a rabbit hole. I won't get into that. But here's what I'll say. When I went to this museum, they had all these planes. They were all gassed up and ready to go, maintained. So if he decided he wanted to go flying, they would just bring it down, open up the hangar, and he could literally...
So the museum was a hangar.
Yes.
It was a hangar
and he could
that had
fly
all
any
these,
of those.
and he could bring them down and fly them.
Yes. Now, this is a big thing. They've moved. And this is a big deal because I almost drove all the way to Sagal, Idaho the last time I went to this museum. But thankfully I did not. But it is now in Hayden, Idaho. So the address is 2678 West Cessna Avenue, Hayden, Idaho. You can...
Cessna's an airplane, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because it's actually an airfield. Because here's the cool thing. On their website, they have driving directions and they have fly-in directions. I literally went and clicked on it. It's amazing. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, but it was fascinating. He died in 2015 at the age of 94. So I was going to the museum while he was still alive. I I would just encourage everybody, hey, if you've got
what
some
a
time.
great local place.
Yeah.
Like the fact that is a 40-minute
It's
drive
smaller,
from
so
Spokane,
it's
Washington.
smaller than the original in Sagal.
Sometimes when you get to go to the original, it's just a little bit better.
It was
but
cool.
It's still very cool.
It's
the
really
history is there. What an incredible man.
Yeah, so check it out. That is all for today, folks. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful
Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.